I think if it's ethnic banter, if it's jokes, if there's still some understanding that we all have the same moral value
So
despite the
I wait,
difference,
wait,
it's
wait, wait,
okay.
wait.
so
Let
do
me
you
inter-
do you
let me
do you
interject. Wait,
accept
wait,
like hold on just one second,
wait.
Sitch. 1 second, Sitch. Do you accept like is it okay to joke about how all white people are racists? Do you think that that's
Yes,
a
absolutely.
okay? I
All
completely
jokes are
disagree.
good. You know what?
I
Say
completely
every single
disagree.
slur.
It's like the free speech absolutist argument, which is why I'm assuming you brought it up, because it's like
Mhm.
no one has a position except for a dumb moron that society should have absolute tolerance for everything. No
Get
one has
angry,
that
Sitch.
position.
Get
That's not
angry.
that's not a real position because there's no if society has absolute tolerance for everything, you don't have a society. That's just anarchy. That's just people doing whatever they want, right? At that point, that's not a culture. That's not a society. That's just a collection of people doing whatever they want. There has to be rules put forward. There has to be cultural norms put forward.
I
How
mean,
long
there
is this?
people were objecting to me classifying academic agent as far right. I mean,
Some
that's an
sort of
ethno national.
ethno-nationalist?
How is that not an ethno nationalist tweet there? The tweet is from academic agent. It says race is culture and
Oh
culture
no,
is
he is.
race.
Yeah, anyone that's
How
saying
is that
he's
not an ethno
obvious.
national?
Yeah,
Yeah.
anyone that's denying it is just doesn't. They're either
Adam,
hiding
you're
power level or they just don't know what they're talking
Adam, you're straw manning academic
about. Obviously,
agent.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
that's what you're hearing.
Yeah, those people don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, it's very clear at this point now. There was some power level hiding at first, and I think we've gone way beyond that point now.
Yeah, no power level hiding is going on now. Now, Dev,
Yes.
a year from now, I'm not going to see you tweet something like this, am I?
Racist culture.
Please tell me, Dev. Just
So
make
on the one,
make a promise to
hold on.
us here on the show. Just make
Okay.
a declaration, a promise to us that you're not going to be tweeting racist shit like this in a year.
Listen. It could go either way, because on the one hand,
Oh my God, that's
now
not.
hear me out. Hear
That's
me out.
not
hear me
a
out,
promise.
Hear me out. On the
You're
one
making
hand,
the wrong kind of promise.
listen. On the one hand, I've dated Asian girls, okay, and on the other hand, I've dated Asian girls.
What is that saying? That you could be Asian in a year?
No, wait, you'll get the joke.
No, I don't.
Lots of white nationalists date Asian girls.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
You didn't know that? It's all over the place, man.
I have heard that. So,
Yeah.
but as long as it's a joke, it sounds like you're ready to
It's
make
just-
that
it's just a joke.
declaration.
No, I'm never going to actually be racist. No.
Okay.
You
you're
know,
not
here,
gonna
racism's fun. Like I enjoy racist jokes, but
I don't
Clip
think
it.
that's not real racism, though. I just
Clip it.
Clip
when
it.
you when you believe
Racism
when
is
you
fun.
believe that you're better than other people based on your race, I think that's racism. Obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's like man. You guys ever play Mass Effect?
No, but I've
No.
heard of it.
Sitch? No?
And I played the
Okay.
first one for like 5 minutes and got bored.
God damn it. Okay. The first one's the best one too. Okay. There's a scene in like Mass Effect 3 where Joker says he turns around from his seat and he says something
And he
like
says, "I'm the Joker, baby."
he says something like, ethnic banter between the various alien races is a good thing because even though Krogans will always be stronger than humans, and Asari will always have stronger biotics than humans, and there's all these genetic differences where you can actually say that one species is better at something than another species as a general rule, even though there's genetic differences that are wildly different between these aliens. Nonetheless, making jokes about all the differences is kind of what brings everyone together. So like,
I completely agree with that.
yeah.
Obviously.
So let's say that it came out that just like we don't know this for sure, but let's just say that we knew for sure it was set in stone. The science has spoken. It's been repeated in many studies that black people just have less IQ than white people. Okay, let's just say it came out that way, and that was just the science. That's no reason to treat individual black people as if they're dumb because everyone bucks trends all the time. And also, you can like have a bit of ethnic banter there where like, okay, there's something that one race has that another race doesn't. And then like there's going to be some other thing that like they can do that you can't do, right? Like you can recognize difference in races and not turn it into a hated thing.
I completely disagree.
Really?
Well, yeah, because I do think if you're creating negative stereotypes that people are going to be forced to live under, yeah, I do think that can be horrible. Yeah. I mean, sure, you're just joking around, but if you're creating a stereotype that, you know, every black person is going to have to deal with every time they meet someone, them thinking that they're stupid, that would be a horrible existence.
Well, keep in mind, I'm talking about a world where the data shows that, right? Like, I'm not talking about right now.
Look, if the data shows that, you're still creating a stereotype that people who are not stupid are going to have to deal with. I always bring up Asians.
How do you deal with that data then? Like, what do you do? It's like, okay, if we have data that shows that due to genetic factors, one race is different from another race in some tangible way, like, you just ignore that? Like, what do you do?
You don't use that data to create a negative stereotype that will tangibly affect people's lives. That's what you're talking about.
I think if it's ethnic banter, if it's jokes, if there's still some understanding that, you know, we all have the same moral value despite the difference. It's okay.
So do you accept, like, hold on just 1 second, Sitch. 1 second, Sitch. Do you accept, like, is it okay to joke about how all white people are racists? Do you think that that's a
absolutely?
Okay. I completely
all jokes
disagree.
are good. You know what?
I
Say
completely
every
disagree.
single slur. People, listen. You got like triggered rightoids out there who are like, "Oh my God, cis is a slur." Yes, and it's good. Say all the slurs, including cis.
I
Say
completely
every
disagree.
single slur. Say them all.
I think there's a big difference between ethnic banter, which I'm fine with, and like kind of what you're talking about, Adam, the perpetrating negative stereotypes that go forward in a serious manner. I think I used to have Dev's opinion where I was like, yeah, as long as it's just jokes, then it's fine. My problem is, you know, I grew up in the 90s, and in the 90s, there was a lot of jokes about, you know, white people being racist and white people sucking. And I thought they were funny because I thought everyone understood they were just jokes.
And then you
And
realize.
now it's 2023, and I'm like, oh, and I start to wonder, did all those things that I thought were jokes and everyone understood were jokes, did all those people not understand that they were jokes? Did those
They
people
didn't.
take that shit to
Yeah.
heart? Is that part of why we're in the situation we're in right now? And I don't know the answer to that question at all.
You're at the
Now,
grocery store and they're looking at you like, "Oh yeah, you're white though, so you're racist."
right?
Like,
because
it's no longer a joke.
because
how about
from
this?
from my
Sitch.
personality type, let me just finish. From my personality
Sure.
type, I want to 100% side with that. I want to. I love for these jokes. I think it's funny to be, you know, fake racist with your friends against your friends. I think it's funny. Okay.
I
I'm
agree
just
with
not
that.
sure. Yeah, I'm just not sure that people can deal with it. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to the question.
Well, okay, so Sitch, in the last stream, I talked about how you would go to world domination meetings. How put
I know,
out do
and
you
I
feel?
talk about. Listen, I'm a hypocrite because I make the same jokes all the time, and I don't have a problem with it, right? But if
But
you're gonna
he
tell
is
me, like,
but
Sitch
he is
broadly
perpetuating
cultural-
you are perpetuating the
Yes.
the JQ stereotype.
because I think it's funny, right? But
I know.
Now,
I'm just saying. I'm just
you can
saying.
make an argument, and here's the argument I would want. Here's what my intuition wants me to make, because I want to keep making these jokes. Okay, I want to keep making the joke that, to me, making the joke depowers the stereotype. It's because everyone, when I make the joke, everyone knows I'm not actually going to secret Jewish meetings.
Not
So me
everyone,
making the
obviously.
joke-
10% of the people know
Okay.
that you're joking.
Right.
Not
So-
80% of the people think that you're serious.
Here's my rationalization. Here's the rationalization, the juicy rationalization I will create to justify me to continue making these jokes and to support the continuation of these jokes to some extent, obviously.
Okay.
It's the Justine Sacco situation.
Uh-huh.
Justine Sacco was like one of the first people to be canceled. She made that joke that was, I'm going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white.
Right.
Right. So when I read that, the way I interpreted it was the joke was actually making fun of a privileged person, believing that, oh, just because I'm white and have some kind of white privilege, I gain immunity to a virus, which is obviously not scientific. And so she's not making fun of black people. It's actually a joke that's kind of making fun of a detached white person.
Wait a second, hold on. Oh wait, I might have missed a little bit of context there. Aren't there like race-based viruses? or like
Yes,
diseases?
but AIDS is not one of them, obviously.
Okay, right. Sorry, I missed that part. Sorry.
Well, there's not race-based. There are viruses that can affect different people depending on their ethnicity differently.
Yeah, like sickle cell anemia and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Sure, right. I mean, but you can still be white and have sickle cell anemia. That's not
Yeah,
possible.
sure, yeah.
I knew a white guy that had sickle cell anemia. So, but so my point is like when I make the joke about me going to the secret Jew meeting, there's an underlying concept in the joke, which is that I'm not making fun of Jewish people. I'm making fun of the idea that Jewish people run the world, right?
Yeah, that's good.
That's kind of like the underlying, that's what kind of makes it funny. And I feel like as long as, and this is kind of difficult in my moral system, as long as someone making the racist joke, kind of the point is to make fun of the racism, then it's fine. I think where you get into the problem is where people make the racist joke to perpetuate the racism, and that's where you get into kind of the other situation, which I don't agree with.
The problem is the reason why it's funny to other people is because it's true.
It can be, right, but we also, to an extent, can't let ourselves like be dictated by what stupid people think.
No, I completely agree.
Right?
And
so you have to kind of find a balance.
I mean, obviously, I would never be against people joking around with their friends that like everyone knows it's a joke and you're all in on the joke. I think where things become more complicated is, you know, you have various comedians. I see these comedians all the time that are literally using the greedy racist stereotype for conservatives. You know, they're literally using the racist, the rich, racist, privileged white person as a stereotype for white people. And, you know, they're doing a comedy act and everyone's laughing and having fun, but they are like creating this stereotype that people believe. And you go to the grocery store in a situation where you're not in a comedy club and, you know, you're dealing with the checker and the checker's looking at you like you're a racist. Like that's just a fact.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a guy in the chat named Albalester White who keeps talking about Punch Out. Would you censor Punch Out then, Adam?
I don't know what Punch Out is. So look,
it's a boxing game.
I'm not in favor.
It's
Mike
a boxing
Tyson's
game.
Punch Out.
It's a boxing game where all the boxers that you fight are ridiculous racial stereotypes.
I am not in favor of censorship. I think we have to deal with this on a cultural level. I think I'm in favor of understanding it so people can personally make the cost benefit analysis of these kind of things, because there is kind of a cost benefit analysis that needs to be done, right? Obviously, you want to make jokes that are funny, and at the same time, you don't want society to fall apart. So, I mean, you're constantly weighing those options.
Are you saying it's a golden mean?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Balance. Don't maybe
Yep.
bring up the enlightened centrist meme, okay? Yes,
I guess what I'm
balance.
trying to say is I was all in favor of racist jokes, and now these actual racists are ruining it.
Yeah, look,
That's the problem.
how the story ends is Sitch stopped making those jokes in his videos.
Yeah, because he's fucking racist. Actually,
Because a
ruined it for
racist.
him.
Look,
I know,
if
it's
we
so
can all
sad.
agree that racists ruin everything, I will be
Yes.
happy. I will think mission accomplished.
It's okay, Sitch. I'll make all the jokes for you.
Thank you. Well, you don't have the Jewish immunity idol, so I'm not sure you can.
Yeah, you're gonna get in big
Right.
trouble.
I don't care. I'll do it anyway.
You
I
know
don't
where
give
you
you permission.
Give me your J card.
No, I'm not doing it.
I'll get one.
Why
from
is
Naomi.
it-
You're not
It'll
part
be
of the
okay.
tribe.
Why is it okay for us to make Canadian jokes? No one is ever offended at the Canadians' expense. Dev, why is that?
I think that's because we've never been genocided or enslaved or anything like that.
It's
Oh,
because there's no actual literal threat to Canada, so it's perceived as goofy.
right.
That's
okay.
the answer, right?
That makes sense.
And that's what
That's-
again. That's why. That's
That's
why
how
like
we're gonna get
racist-
you, by the way.
Exactly. That's why racist jokes among friends can be funny because you have a knowledge set that you're friends.
Right.
And so
yeah,
you know that the person is not actually bigoted against you. Where if it's like strangers, like if you were to tell some racist joke that you told your friends to a stranger, they'd be like, "What the fuck?" Because they don't know who you are. They don't know anything about you.
Tell
It
that
could be
joke at
perceived
work
threat.
and see how it goes over.
Sure. Right.
You can tell it at my workplace, no problem.
There you go.
Oh, caffeine in the chat is apparently Canadian. Oh, that's neat.
Yes. CT is Canadian. That's...
Yeah.
Where are they?
What is she saying? Anyway, should we go?
Anyway.
You want to do?
Oh my God! Artemis Fowl just super chatted $10. Artemis Fowl, my favorite schizo.
What's
What do you say?
Yeah, maybe we should read some super chats, Sitch. I think there's
What
about
happens
20
when
Artemis
people
people
Fowl.
do
So
not bend?
do you have some history of this with Artemis? I mean, I've seen Artemis Fowl
Yeah.
give us money before, but we don't have.
He watches me a lot. He hangs around with like Arch Warhammer, Sargon,
Okay.
Kibbs. You know,
Nice.
the bickering bunch.
So what happens when people do not bend to cultural will? What is society allowed to do to enforce cultural change? How far are you willing to let society go to enforce thought crime? Well, are you talking about, is this in relation to the racist jokes question or in terms of the cultural
Possibly.
assimilation
I
question?
mean, there is a question where it's like, I don't want the state to do this. I want the culture to change. It's like, okay, well, how do you change the culture?
No,
What if
no,
the
but
culture won't change, you know?
what is this in reference to? Is this reference
Nothing
to the racist
I
jokes?
talked about was the thought crime either.
Okay. Before I answer this question,
He's my very friendly schizo. Schizo is important.
And I'm asking Artemis, and you can put in the normal chat. What are you asking here? Is this in relation to the racist joke question or the immigration question? Okay.
It's got to be to the racist joke question.
Well, I
So
don't
what
really
happens when
understand it in the
people
racist
do
joke
not-
question at all.
So what happens when people do not bend to your cultural will? I think that's pointed at us, probably me, saying that when you're making these jokes, there is going to be some people who take them seriously, and you are going to create racist stereotypes. What is society allowed to what is society allowed to do enforce
Racist
cultural
jokes.
change?
Yeah, you said it, racist jokes. Yeah.
Right.
So like,
I don't understand the
if-
question then.
Well, I think the question is something like, okay, you don't want the state to ban racist jokes, but you
No.
want the culture to change to like disincentivize certain types of racist jokes. Okay, let's say that the culture doesn't change.
I don't want. Wait.
What do you do next?
Okay. I'm thinking this through, and it's unfortunate because, when we went on Ricada's stream, I thought this was going to be like, help me think through this process because I don't have an answer, and instead it just became this fucking horrible struggle session of insanity. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's a
And
lot
so-
of our show is really us thinking through different things and helping one another think through things.
Right.
So
And so this is, I think this is what my position is from what I said and what you guys said just now. Okay. I don't think there should be, obviously there should be no legal enforcement on like racist jokes.
of course,
I don't even
not,
think
yeah.
there should be a cultural enforcement on racist jokes. Because again, I think racist jokes are fine as long as there's an underlying feeling that that they're making fun of the jokes or that there's not sincere. I think the cultural enforcement mechanism and even the legal enforcement mechanism in some situations should be against racism. Period. And I think if people are just going to, I think the price of freedom in terms of even people in the 90s making white people bad jokes, if the price of freedom is that a bunch of dumb fuck piece of shit kids 10 or 20 years later are going to take those white kids are racist or white kids are bad, white people are bad jokes to heart, then we're going to have to just fight it and fight those dumb idiots. And that's the price of free speech. I think that's my position now.
That seems fair.
Fight them in the street.
Fight them in the battle of cultural okay, the cultural norms. I don't. So that's my position. That's my position. We should be fighting racism culturally and obviously legally in some avenues, and that's it. I think racist jokes are fine as long as they're not culturally fine, as long as they're not intended to be taken seriously. So
Right. Yeah. Well, there are certain jokes that I don't think you could make because I don't think audiences would find them funny. Like if you wanted to make, jokes at various minorities' expense today, I don't know if you could make those jokes.
you could if you were that minority, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way it's always been.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Like Chappelle is a master at doing this, obviously. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Dr. Diller for 2 hours says, I thought I was your favorite schizo. What the fuck? Wow.
Sorry, Dr. Diddler.
That's
What
why
would it be
Dr. Diller
like
is
if-
an S-class general and not a D-bag.
God damn it.
It is interesting that, obviously Chappelle makes a lot of jokes about that are at black people's expense. because he's black,
Right.
right? I don't know that a white comedian could make those jokes, obviously, at black people's expense, because it would be perceived completely differently. But I do think black comedians, and I mean, I think I saw like an Indian comedian recently that his whole set was about, white people, were jokes at white people's
Yeah, but
expense.
see, it's interesting, and this is the key here. Okay, when you're making these racial jokes, there is an element, and I hate to say it, there is an element of the P plus P equals R thing that exists. There's an underlying kernel of truth there, because when you have, like, in the past, okay, in the past, now let's put ourselves in 1990 shoes. In the past, if a black comedian makes a joke about white people, the perception, doesn't necessarily was true, but the perception was that there was not a threat to white people based on the joke that the black comedian had made, because there hadn't been, in the history of America, it didn't seem like white people were going to be threatened by racism, essentially. But if you had a white comedian make a joke about black people, there would be a perception of threat, because obviously in America, there's a long history of white subjugation of black people.
Right. Interesting.
However, in the far off future of 2023, we no longer live in that future. We now live in a future where if you are white, you can 100% get racism perpetuated against you. So I would argue that a black comedian or an Indian comedian can no longer, in today's climate, make jokes about white people, because white people can be attacked for their race and have been attacked because of their race.
But Sitch, you just said you were against censorship.
I'm not saying it legally. I'm just saying I don't think
Right.
they should. And I think
Right.
I think because we live in a climate right now. Here's the problem too, because everyone wants like some universal rule and we can't have one. Okay, because we literally live in a climate right now where people are seriously arguing that it's okay to be racist against white people. I think if you're a
know.
comedian, you have to take that into consideration before you make jokes that are racist about white people.
They
So,
don't though. They just
no.
they take it as it's okay to make racist jokes against white people.
Right. They're
They
still living
basically
in an old paradigm that I don't think exists anymore.
no, I think they
Or they're just
realize that
racist.
it's acceptable to be racist against white
Or
people.
that,
And,
yes. Or that,
yeah.
right. Or that,
And they just adopt that paradigm.
yes. Or that.
All right,
So-
Artemis, give us another $20 super chat. Should we go back to
Well, let me read these other ones first.
Yeah.
Kyle Vernon for $5 says, "You guys are for censorship, and you should stop pretending you aren't. You need to censor things to protect intellectual property rights." So I guess I don't really understand the super chat, because I've said a million times, I'm not a free speech absolutist, and no one really is. Maybe there's some crazy people out there that are, but no one is a real free speech absolutist, because everyone's in favor, I'd assume, most people are in favor of protecting intellectual property. Most people are in favor of not allowing, slander or libel. Most people are against child pornography. All these things are infringement on free speech, blah, 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 blah. But I don't think that really has to do with the question
Yeah.
of where should we draw the line, which I don't
Hey,
think jokes should be censored in terms of
this actually
legal
reminds me of something.
censorship.
So yeah, before I do have to go soon, but before I take off, I do want to
Mhm.
run something by. So I'm sure you've come across this idea before, that like the liberal claim to being, let's say, a more open mode of politics than other types of politics, that all ends up just being a farce because liberalism still does oppress its political opponents in the end. You heard about that before?
Yeah, I've heard it. It's stupid, but yes, I've heard it.
Yeah. What's your argument against it?
Well, every culture, every society is going to be, quote, oppressive against extreme oppositions to that existing culture. And that's the only way that culture can be maintained. However, under all of human history, liberalism has been the most permissive of allowing dissenting opinions. So those people can fuck off, because they're
Yeah, I mean, pretty
advocating
much,
for
yeah.
something that, number one, doesn't exist, and number two, they themselves don't actually believe in, because they want to implement a system where there is no dissent allowed.
Sure,
And
sure.
in fact,
I mean,
that's the argument that they're literally being hypocritical, because those are the same people that make the argument that the permissiveness of liberalism is what allows the communism to come in and degenerate it.
Right. So we have to
Yeah,
throw away
yeah.
liberalism.
Right.
No
So-
freedom.
the criticism is something like, liberalism isn't actually tolerant because it doesn't tolerate things that are anti-liberal. Just like, Islamism doesn't tolerate anything that's anti-Islam, or Nazism doesn't tolerate anything that's anti-Nazi. It's like, yeah, I get the point. There's probably something there. However, what still, nonetheless, the net that liberalism throws of acceptable things is a lot wider for sure.
Right. It's a right.
And then the issue is
Mhm.
the only issue is that like if your morality doesn't actually value it being wide, that's not that's not an argument,
Right. But and here's what you could say to those people. You could say, wait a minute. It's like the free speech absolutist argument, which is why I'm assuming you brought it up, because it's like no one has a position except for a dumb fuck moron that society should have absolute tolerance for everything. No
Get
one
angry,
has that
Sitch.
position.
Get
That's not
angry.
That's not a real position, because there's no if society has absolute tolerance for everything, you don't have a society. That's just anarchy. That's just people doing whatever the fuck they want, right? At that point, that's not a culture. That's not a society. That's just a collection of people doing whatever the fuck they want. There has to be rules put forward. There has to be cultural norms put forward. So that's what I would say to those people, that they're just talking out of their ass. They're just mad that whatever their little niche thing that they like is not accepted by society, even though liberalism is the most tolerant so far. So I tell them to fuck off.
I guess the logic though is like if you don't value tolerance, liberalism being the most tolerant so far isn't really a point in its favor.
Well, that's true too. That's another. So why the fuck do you? So tell them to fuck off for being hypocrites.
Yeah, so like the natural end result of this argument is that like you just don't have any overlap, and you have to either like accept leaving each other alone or fight over it. Like that's really it.
Right.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.